Welcome everyone. Today I'll be taking a look back at Michael Bay's 2005 sci-fi film, The Island. Disclaimer, if you haven't seen the film yet, I'll be entering into spoiler territory here, so consider this your warning before I proceed any further. Although tanking at the box office, The Island had all the makings of a blockbuster. 2 high-profile leads in Ewan McGregor and Scarlett Johansson, an intriguing premise, and plenty of adrenaline-fueled action to keep you stimulated throughout its somewhat bloated over 2-hour runtime. So why wasn't it a hit with audiences? Well, for one, it wasn't a recognizable brand, and its average reviews also didn't help sell the film to moviegoers. But bad reviews never stopped Michael Bay before. He uses the same formula here that proved a recipe for success in his biggest hits: hot girls, fast cars, and explosions. For me, his filmmaking style often takes its cue from the aesthetic of commercial advertising, which makes perfect sense given that he began his career making music videos and ads for top brands such as Victoria's Secret, Miller Lite, and Nike. This is by no means a dig at his talent behind the camera. Many great directors, such as Ridley Scott, started their careers in advertising. I often find Bay's films are like extended commercials, often privileging style over substance, which is fine if sheer visceral thrills are what you're going for. However, in The Island, the over-reliance on mindless spectacle clashes with the film's high-concept pretensions. The film has a great premise, setting up an intriguing mystery that plays out against a dystopian future. Lincoln 6 Echo and Jordan 2 Delta live in a futuristic community within an isolated compound. They are told that the outside world has become too contaminated to support life, except for one island. Every week, one person is chosen to live on the island by means of a lottery. They all exhibit uniformity, show little emotion, and appear to have no knowledge of sex. More self-aware than the others, Lincoln wanders into a section of the compound only to discover the island is a fabrication used to deceive himself and the other residents, who are in fact clones of wealthy sponsors, who are using them for organ harvesting, surrogacy, and other specialized purposes. Both he and Jordan 2 Delta, who has been selected to go to the island, escape the compound on a mission to find a way to expose the ugly truth and save the other clones. So let's start with the good. I love the idea of a subterranean compound, which is visualized to resemble an underground city. I also liked how you at first believe the compound represents the future of human society, which is uncannily regimented and uniform with little value for the individual. When you are finally shown how life is on the Earth's surface, society doesn't look that different from our own. Except for maybe some flying cars, the world still has its dive bars, skyscrapers, and federal government. You even discover that the President of the United States is one of the compound's sponsors. Sean Bean is another standout as Dr. Merrick, the head of the compound, who seems to spend most of the film shaking his head in frustration. Now for what I didn't like. I found the choice of color filter distracting, which made the images look overexposed and casted a fake, glossy sheen over every scene. The action scenes were also generic, lacking cohesion due to choppy editing. The film's aggressive product placement was also borderline gratuitous. Here's a list of the brands featured: Aquafina, Ben & Jerry's, Calvin Klein, Sony TV, Xbox, Puma sneakers, American Express, Apple Mac, MSN.com, HP monitor, Tag Heuer watches, Popular Mechanics, Sprint and Samsung, Cadillac, GMC, Cisco Systems, Bose headphones. I found it ironic that a film about fabricating a collective illusion in the form of the island oasis would exploit every marketing opportunity that came its way. The idea of an island vacation is one of the ultimate fantasies of contemporary consumer culture. A driving fantasy behind commercial advertising is the notion of leaving our daily grind, the mechanistic routines and roles of our everyday life, and escaping into a place of freedom, pleasure, and self-actualization. The film takes this fantasy and gives it a dystopian twist, where the island promises freedom, but in reality is only a capitalist illusion fabricated to perpetuate a robotic servitude to the elite. An illusion built upon an industry of death and sacrifice. While the film implicates the federal government, it avoids any jab at the US by making most of the villains British. Even Ewan McGregor gives Lincoln Six Echo's greedy, sex-addicted sponsor, the original, a British accent, while his more good-hearted clone speaks with an American one. Let's look a bit more closely at Lincoln Six Echo's sponsor, who is an industrial designer specializing in cars and boats, who requires his clone's liver to survive due to the cirrhosis caused by his sex addiction. Both cars and boats, like the island, carry symbolic value in the film as fantasy-fulfilling means of escape from a corrupt system. Lincoln Six Echo dreams of sailing with Jordan 2 Delta to the island on a boat. These dreams turn out to be the result of the compound's mental conditioning, but it is fitting that his sponsor, an innovator of cars and boats, would indirectly feed into this consumerist fantasy of the island. His sex obsession also ties into the irrationality of the capitalist logic of the compound, whose purpose is to keep its inhabitants in the dark while maintaining the self-destructive playboy lifestyles of its sponsors. When all is said and done, the film's promising concepts are never fully explored, quickly unraveling as the action takes over. As previously mentioned, it is highly ironic to see the film confront the dark side of capitalism while also taking every opportunity to arouse the audience's consumerist desires through the crazy product placement. Lincoln Six Echo's sponsor, the epitome of capitalist greed and excess, is used for some of the most grotesque instances of branded advertising, rolling out his Cadillac as if the film is saying, "Isn't organ harvesting for profit awful? How about you also buy a car and indulge in some mindless consumption?" It hesitates to go too far with its cynical dystopian vision. Why? Because it makes us feel bad. In the end, the film wants to leave us with a good feeling. The film sets up an edgy premise portraying how our sense of identity and reality, our very dreams and memories, may be manufactured illusions designed to coerce and control us. The true horror of the island is the realization that we are all expendable commodities within an all-encompassing capitalist machine. However, the film ultimately chooses to validate and endorse such coercive illusions, both literally through the product placement and plot-wise through the last scene of the film, where the clone's fabricated dream of leaving the compound on a boat is finally fulfilled and becomes a reality. It's hard to take a film about brainwashing seriously when it seeks to coerce and brainwash the audience into buying lots of shit. If our individuality is defined by what we consume, we may not be all wearing uniforms, like the clones in the film, but it amounts to the same thing. One person wears Pumas, another sports Nike, all just brands sold to consumers as identity markers, promising self-actualization when really companies are making everyone alike as disposable brand endorsers serving a larger corporate entity. It annoys me, since the film had a great concept, although even that may have been stolen from other films in light of the lawsuit for copyright infringement of the 1979 sci-fi film The Clone is Horror. It would certainly be poetic if the film was just a copy of another film. The island does afford some cheap thrills, but in the end, you might as well watch a commercial and get the same effect.